This audio production is brought to you by John Bumpus and the Nutritional Balancing Friends Facebook group. Please remember that none of these products, claims, or programs from this call have been evaluated by any government health body. The content and information found within this audio from John Bumpus, attendance of this group call, and in our affiliated Nutritional Balancing Friends Facebook group is for informational purposes only. The content is in no way intended as medical advice, as a substitute for medical counseling, or as treatment cure for any disease or health condition, and nor should it be construed against, because that would be illegal. Always work with a qualified health professional before making any changes to your diet, supplement use, prescription drug use, lifestyle, or exercise activities. Please understand that you assume all risks from the use, non-use, or misuse of this information. Thank you.
Is like when I was really in the group, the last time that I was active in a Facebook group was when it was the Dr. Wilson Facebook group, and then that got disbanded when he decided it wasn't okay to do that anymore. And so I never really got active again in staying in touch with people as far as nutritional balancing.
Hey Sophia, you here?
Aloha from Hawaii.
Oh,
Aloha.
wow. Aloha.
You're in the Paradise Island?
We have Mexico, Hawaii, and Australia.
Awesome.
Represented in the house.
We're going global. Rakil's gonna join in a little bit. She said she's got some family over. We never connected before, Sophia, so it was nice to meet you.
Yeah,
John.
cheers. Aloha. Nice to meet you too.
Nice to meet you too. I haven't met anybody really, so I should say that. I did a lot of sessions with people a couple years ago, so I've met with some of the people, but
really, like I was saying off the call with Courtney, it was basically I don't like lectures. I don't want it to be like getting get lectured on something, but I like to have a dialogue or conversation about the emotional aspects of mineral balancing programs and I guess nutritional balancing, whatever you want to call it, and some of the emotional effects that come along with detoxification, with having imbalanced minerals, and I'm sure Courtney's got some different perspectives as well from the standpoint that she does with LifeLine, which I'll be honest, I don't really know too much about. I've never heard of it. Can you tell us what it is?
yeah, so basically it's a system. It's a step-by-step system, and I'm going to try to do this in the most non-lecturing way. So it's a system for really taking whatever is going on in your life. So whatever stresses, whatever physical symptoms that you have that you're experiencing, getting to the root of where that comes from. And this is the thing that took me a long time to really accept, coming from nutritional balancing or mineral balancing, whatever you want to call it, was that the root of this is not a mineral imbalance. It's an unprocessed emotion. It's trauma that you've experienced in this life, or if you're open to it, to past lives or ancestral emotions that have been passed on down the line. And these beliefs that we hold that go with these traumas are what create these imbalances in our body, this disease in our body. And so, but it starts from an unprocessed emotion, and there's a lot of science that's coming out now that's supporting this. There's work by Bruce Lipton with neuropeptides. There's Candace Pert, who used to work for the National Institute of Health. There's a lot of research out there that shows the work that I do, but it's on an energetic level, and so kind of all over the place here, but the work is to really get to the root of those unprocessed traumas, those unprocessed emotions, and process them so that they're no longer limiting you. And then with that, each session is this release, is this new level of vibration, of this raising of your consciousness. And what I'm going to say is that people that are in, this is just my generalization, this has been my experience, is that people that are doing nutritional balancing, people that are doing mineral balancing, people that are really struggling with health at this point really have a lot of stuck emotions in their body. They're really good at numbing, they're really good at distracting, they're really good at pushing stuff down. and ignoring how they feel. They're good at outwardly saying something and feeling differently inside. And we've all been raised. I mean, there's probably a fortunate like handful of people on this planet that we're not raised to please everybody else and be good and have good manners and say please and thank you and make sure you give your aunt a kiss, and but not to really listen to what it is that we want and what it is that we need in our lives. And so with that comes all of this trauma, all of these beliefs that we're not good enough, that nobody really sees us for who we are, that we have to put on these masks. And so this is all the stuff that gets built up, and it starts to show up physically in our body. And then you find yourself looking for mineral balancing or other answers to help get your health back. But really a key piece of my own healing and for many of my clients has been this processing of emotions. And I can tell you from my own physical experience, from experience of clients, that after a session, you can go from having intense physical pain, for example, to having zero pain because you've processed that imbalance in your body. And it's not to say that it will never come back. It's not to say that you'll never be triggered again. But every single time you do a session, every single time you work through these emotions that are coming up, and when you have the tools to do it in the spot, it's even better. Then you are able to realign yourself, and you're able to release those emotions, and you're able to upgrade, really. You're able to upgrade your vibration in your consciousness. I know that sounds kind of out there, but this is NB, so I know a lot of people are down.
Can you repeat what this modality is called?
It's called LifeLine. It's called LifeLine, the LifeLine technique, but there's others out there. It doesn't just have to be the LifeLine technique. This is what really resonated with me. I come from an engineering background, and I really like that there's like a systematic approach to it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's tons of them out there. There's tons of things that work on. Jillian is doing another one with, I think it's the body code. I don't know if it's body code or the emotional, but there's different modalities out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
To find one that resonates with them, and if you can learn it for yourself, oh my gosh, like it's a game changer. It's a game changer because every single time you get triggered, whether it's by your physical symptoms, because for me, wow, I had really intense insomnia, and the anxiety that would go with that was like off the charts. I could not function for years. And to have the tools to be able to be like, okay, I have anxiety, I have insomnia, I have these things going on, and I have now tools to process that so that it's no longer running through my head telling me like, you're never going to get better, this is just going to get worse, you're never going to be able to do it, right? All of that talk that goes on in our head where we just defeat ourselves before we even get out of the gates. You can process that, and it no longer holds you back, and you can actually feel empowered, and you can actually see it as a gift. I mean, that's further down the road. It took me probably a good 2 years to get to that point where I really started seeing stresses in my life as gifts. And for me, that comes because I know every single time that I'm really triggered, like I'm like upset, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm nervous, I'm whatever, I know that on the other side of that, I'm going to be able to have a really deep session from that. And on the other side of that is incredible liberation. So each and every person that's going through these health crises right now, this is such an amazing opportunity for growth because you are so deeply invested in it. You are so connected to it, and you can connect to those emotions that are tied to it. And so when you can release those emotions, you can release all those things that are keeping you where you are today.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, please.
So I did some NLP like years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Is LifeLine a lot like the timeline? You develop a timeline kind of thing of when things have happened, and then how does that work?
Yeah, so a session would go through, so we get connected. So we connect to the earth, we connect to our spirit, we connect to our mind and our bodies and everything as we connect. And then we go through and we connect to our physical symptoms, and we connect to our emotional stresses, and you rate them. So you're like, okay, right now my back is killing me. It's an 8 out of 10. And so we go through all physical symptoms, then we go to the emotional stresses, and you're like, I'm super stressed because my body I feel like it's falling apart. And so you're like, okay, I have anxiety. It's a 9 out of 10. I have fear. It's an 8 out of 10. I have like desperation. So you go through and you connect to all of these things that are tied in with whatever that stress is for you right now. Then when you do that, you set an intention. You set an intention, and that sets the bar of anything that is going on within you that is not in alignment with your intention, and it's going to be linked back to the symptoms and stresses that you connected to. Anything that's not in line with that is going to come up in the session. And so it starts with NLP. We do a series of statements, and I muscle test to make sure that those statements are strong. If those statements aren't strong, then what we do is with LifeLine, we raise the vibration with the power of infinite love and gratitude. It sounds super cheesy. I'm going to say it flat out. But it works like you wouldn't believe. Like, people are like, what is infinite love and gratitude? But if you've seen the research of Hidden Messages in Water by Dr. Emoto, it's you can affect the change of or the structure of water, right? By and I'm sure you guys have seen these experiments where people have like apples in different jars or flowers, and they give love to one and they nasty words to the other one, and one thrives and the one that had nasty words wilts and dies. It's that same idea. So you're raising the vibration of your consciousness with infinite love and gratitude. And so we use that. We repeatedly say infinite love and gratitude, infinite love and gratitude. And it raises the vibration to the point where that statement, whatever statement we're at, is no longer triggering you. It's something that you are now in alignment with. So we go through, we do a series of statements. We check to see if there's any work to do in the physical body, which is a whole other process. Then we go into core limiting beliefs, and we check to see where these beliefs are stored in the chakra system. So they're stored in your light body, and we see which of these chakras are resonating with the core limiting belief that's associated with you not being in alignment with your intention. And then, so we go through and we process emotions. And again, through muscle testing, we use 5 elements, Chinese theory. I mean, there's so many different aspects to it to really explain it. I'm sure I've lost you guys already.
No. I'm still here. Yeah, I think we're all a little outside of the box, probably, anyway, right?
Good. Okay. I know. And so with that comes with these emotions that are, so as you go through the 5 elements, so we find the chakras that are resonating, then we find the elements that are resonating with this core limiting belief, and each element has a series of emotions that are tied to it. And I mean, we know generally the emotions like I can't think of the word. Fire. Oh my gosh. Sorry, I'm in Mexico, so I tend to switch into Spanish. It's good, but it's really frustrating at times too. So fire is like that loss, that vulnerable thing, right? The fire, when we're in our alignment with fire, we're like creative, we're all consuming, we're moving forward, it's that masculine energy, like, yes, I can do whatever I want, right? When we're not, we're like lost, we're vulnerable, we don't know where we're going, we feel like we're spun around. Same thing. So earth is our connection to the earth. It's our groundedness. It's our unconditional love. It's that support. It's that mothering quality. When we're out of balance, then we have things like we're oversympathetic, right? We're not really looking after ourselves. We're thinking more about other people. We're going beyond kind of what we should be. It's low self-esteem. So all these other things. Anyway, so each element has these emotions that are tied to it. So we muscle test to find out which emotions are now tied to these core limiting beliefs that are showing up because you've set this intention that is in direct contrast to all of these symptoms that are going on right now. So anyway, hopefully you guys are still with me. Then we find out when it happened. When did this core limiting belief first begin? And so it can be in this life. Usually when you first start out processing emotions, it's in this life. And then you start to work back through previous lives. Like I have been working on a previous life for probably 6 months now. So I have one specific life and 2 points in that life that my sessions consistently are with that. But each time they're deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And each time I do a session, it's more and more and more liberating. So we find out when that core limiting belief began. Then we find out the imbalances that are going on in your body as a result of that core limiting belief. So everything from the session onward is tied to that event in your life. And then we process it. So we do some more work with 5 elements. We figure out how the meridians are flowing or not flowing. We do some work with how these emotions are being expressed in your body, whether it's emotionally, whether it's structurally, whether it's biochemically. Then we find out where it's being held, how long it's been held in your body, where it's been held, what kind of work we need to do to release that. And then we seal it all up. And then that's a session. And so this step, it's 16 steps, so it can be, especially when, the first session can be an hour and a half, 2 hours, but it's very detailed. It's very accurate because it's muscle testing. So it's the emotions that come up, you connect to them however you connect to them, and it releases that trauma. So, I mean, without actually doing a session, that's really the best I can explain it.
No, that's great. One of the things I find valuable in all emotional work is that it's a subjective aspect of healing rather than just like the hair test is very objective.
Yeah.
It is what it is, so to speak. Whereas when it comes to like anger or something in the liver, what you're angry about is really up to the person that's experiencing it, and it's not necessarily even something that may anger, me or anyone else in this call.
And that is such a key aspect of it, that each person, this is really where this is like the key of it, is that what triggers you is inside you. And so that's where we think, okay, well, if that person could just change, or if that person could just change, or if that situation could just change, or if that, right? And we try to make these affect these changes outside of us, but it's something within you that is creating, really, I mean, the basis of all of it is fear, right? Is this fear that we're not going to be loved, this fear that we're not worthy, that's fear. And so we project this outwards, but really the work is inner. It's inner work. And so anyway, I'm in the process of going through a divorce, and that was really one of the hardest things, was like, when do I take this responsibility fully in myself, and when is it like time to just end the relationship? Because I was like, I know this is a mirror of what's going on inside me, is what's going on in my relationship. And so it was really, for me, it was a difficult cut. But my partner now is like, that was one of my requirements for moving forward into another relationship, was like, that whoever I'm in a relationship with needs to, when there's conflict, we need to take that inwards and be like, okay, what's going on inside of me? Why do I feel like you need to change? Why can't I accept you the way that you are? Right? And so that is the beauty of being able to process whatever it is that's triggering you, is you can literally affect change that's going on outside of you, and get to a point where things that used to bother you don't bother you anymore. So you don't need anybody to change. You don't need anyone to be any different than they are. You can accept people exactly as they are, because you can do that work inwards. And so it's amazing. It's incredible. And sorry, if anyone has questions, please just interrupt me. But
I just wanted to say hi, Sarah. She joined the call. We didn't welcome her.
Hi, Sarah. I'm babbling right now, so please.
That's fine. No, I really appreciate all the emotional aspects of doing things. I understand it's all, like I said, it's unique to the person and the meaning that they apply to situations in their life. I have done a lot of research and some self-exploration in the area itself, but it never ceases to amaze me at just how impactful it can be, especially, on the hair test, I see like people that have certain circumstances in their life, whether it be their husband or their wife, or they just haven't changed a part of their life that needs changing.
Yeah. And so I can tell you from my own personal experience, when I first started LifeLine, I tried to lifeline my way out of splitting from my husband. Like, I was at that point, I couldn't even fathom the idea of not being with him. And through a process, a very lengthy process, but a series of doing sessions daily for a year. And so, I mean, this is where I think it's very valuable, especially for people with that are in mineral balancing, that are struggling with their health, to learn it for themselves, because to be able to consistently wake up every morning and set your intention and set yourself in alignment with what it is that you want is like, there's nothing like it. There's absolutely nothing like it. And But through those sessions, I was able to see, I was able to grow really enough and evolve enough that I could start to see my life without him, and I could start to ask for what it was that I needed, and I could start to say, you know what, I deserve better than this, and you know what, this isn't what I want anymore. And so it's this incredible process. But yeah, the ability to really work through instead of hiding. Like I speak from, again, my own personal experience, but hiding or being like, no, that's okay. I don't need to deal with that emotion. I'll just stick that one over there in the closet, and life will be okay. It'll be okay. But be able to really go to where your fears are and work through them, and have them no longer be limiting you is like, it's amazing. It's amazing. And it's truly what holds us back. And I mean, I'm at the point now where I think any of these physical conversations that we're having with our bodies, where our bodies are speaking very loudly to us, is really our wake-up call. It is our opportunity to be like, this is our body saying, no more. No more. You're not going to shove that emotion over there anymore. You're not going to ignore that anymore. This is something that needs to be dealt with. And so there's one thing is, you can't process your way out of a bad life situation. If you are in a toxic relationship, that needs to disappear. Like, it needs to either fix itself or it needs to go away. You need to remove yourself from that. But doing the sessions will give you that power and that confidence and that worthiness. Really, it comes down to that you deserve better than that, and that your life can be exactly what you want it to be.
I agree. I think a lot of the time people spend a lot of their efforts to remove physical toxins, whether it be like BPA or EMF or mercury in fish or any of those kinds of things. And the kind of overlooked aspect is that there's like toxic people in their environment. Sometimes people are toxic to themselves. They have a lot of self-limiting beliefs, a lot of habits that are self-destructive, and they may, in the big picture, want to get better, but they fail to see the disconnect of where their day-to-day actions are even dragging them down. That makes sense.
Yeah, no, and it's that too. It's that inner dialogue. I mean, that is the biggest enemy. But what happens is, when we're in these toxic relationships, that toxic energy becomes our inner dialogue. It becomes that self-talk. I'm not good enough. I'm an idiot. Like, oh, why can't I do this better? Oh, I didn't eat perfectly today. I'm not going to get better. Like, all that stuff. And for me personally, like, my husband at the time was not a bad person at all. He didn't know how to show up for me with what I was going through, like, with my health. And so he just kind of pulled away. And so I became this, like, I felt like a dust bunny. I mean, that's really how I described it. I just felt like I was pushed in the corner. And it was like, well, because I have 2 kids as well. Like, when mommy gets her stuff sorted out, then she'll come back and live with us. There was no support. There was no, like, let's talk about this. Let me hold your hand. Let's figure out how we're going to do this, right? It was very much like pushed aside. And at the same time, I was super toxic. I was fearful. I was angry. I was controlling. I mean, it was just, it was many years of not great stuff. But anyway, and I totally lost my train of thought of why I was telling you that. But anyway.
Have you come across the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza?
Yes. And so it's funny that you asked that. That's how I came across LifeLine. That's how I convinced myself to do LifeLine, because I went to one of his workshops in Mexico City, and I was going to go do the advanced retreat for a week, and I couldn't get it to work out for my schedule. There was 2 different ones that I was going to look at, and I couldn't get it to work out. And just at that time, I came across LifeLine, and I was like, wow, this is a really cool modality. When I was really, really sick, muscle testing really fascinated me. Chiropractic really fascinated me. Acupuncture really fascinated me. So these were all these things that I wanted to learn, and LifeLine incorporates a lot of that stuff together. And so I'm like, I really want to learn this. And it was that money that I was going to use for the advanced retreat that I used to get my certification instead. And really, I mean, his work, that was kind of my first step into this, like, I can change my body with my mind. What is this? Like, what? I don't get this. And so, but after doing his workshop and after learning LifeLine, I mean, it truly is that your mind believes whatever you tell it. So if you're telling it, I'm sick, I can't eat this, I can't do that, I don't have any energy, I can't, that's what's going to perpetuate through your life. It will not change. If you can change that inner dialogue, if you can change, and that helps. Don't get me wrong. Nutritional balancing is golden. Like, it gives you the nutrients, which really affects the emotions. If you're exhausted and you don't have enough energy, then it's really hard to get excited and pumped up for life. But if you can change that inner dialogue, even if you feel like you're lying to yourself, your mind will start to believe that you can truly affect change in your physical body with what you're doing.
At one point, because a lot of people do know my story, but not everybody, but I had a spinal injury and I was unable to walk. And I was doing nutritional balancing and I experienced some benefits, but it wasn't like a complete healing. I was feeling a little better. My pain wasn't as excruciating all the time, but I was limited. Like, I still walked with a cane and all this stuff. I really couldn't do much. And that's when I started to jump more into the mind techniques. And I did the workshop with Dr. Joe Dispenza, did a workshop with Dr. Bruce Lipton. I did some learning with Dr. Gilbert Reynaud and some research with Dr. Dietrich Hammer, I think his name is. No, it's Geared Hammer, right? Geared Hammer. And I started to put together like the influence of the mind, and not so much like lying to my body, but faking it till I made it. And imagining that I could walk properly, and imagining me going through the forest and going for a jog in the woods, and going picking all the plants and stuff that I love to do. But I couldn't do it anymore, and that was really hard on me as well, because it felt like I lost a piece of myself. Now that I was sick, I couldn't enjoy myself anymore. And so I really do see value in both techniques. I think where nutritional balancing right now is it's kind of polarized in that, like, the physical kind of runs things. And like, you just pray and that's kind of push down or pull down. I like how he changed the pulling down rather than pushing down. But just push those feelings down and dominate them, right? I like pulling down. It makes more sense, but it's just semantics. But I come to the kind of area where, of course, nutrients can impact the mind, and we even have like Dr. William Walsh, who's doing nutrient power, I think his book's called. And he's having great results. But when you have like these beliefs, like, they're not something that's measured by science. Like, you can't get a blood test to see if you're angry, right? Or if you're full of fear, or even if you lack compassion, like, the stuff's not part of any objective testing. And that's where I think, like, if you really want to develop spiritually, or even just become the full human that you desire to be, you really got to do some other things, and that includes a lot of the work that you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, man, I was going to say something and I totally lost it. It's really, there's, I totally lost it.
Okay.
Well, I'll jump in real quick. If nobody's ever heard of biofield tuning, that's another amazing modality that you want to check out. It sounds like it's all part of the same thing. The thing about biofield tuning is that it is about changing your frequency, but it has to do with this recorded history that you have that's off of your body, and it's a sound modality that helps to that you work with a clinician or a practitioner. And a lot of this work can be very cerebral, and you kind of have to like, you know, do journaling or really think about things. And that's not what this is, because the body has memory.
Yes.
And it's stored in a very different way. And so I strongly recommend checking out Eileen McCusick's modality, biofield tuning. I did a initial training last November, and it was mind blowing. And I think there's so many different paths to all of this. You know, LifeLine sounds amazing. Biofield tuning sounds very similar, but it's more sound related. But it's dealing with frequency, and the thing I like is that now they're talking a lot about electricity and charge, and I'm like, well, that's where minerals come in, right?
Yeah.
You know, there's just like this. There's so many different modalities, but when it comes down to it, I think that there's so much similarity, really. You know, because minerals have frequency, right?
Yeah.
You know, and so I don't know. I think it's all very exciting. I think that there's so many different ways that we have to approach, you know, our health. And you know, I mean, when you have someone come to you and you're like, oh my gosh, you know, you can tell that they have lots of gut infections, they're copper toxic, you know, they have blood sugar dysregulation, and it's not just about taking your supplements and switching your diet. You know, it's about so much deeper, you know, and sometimes people aren't ready. I find that's a difficult one, is that, you know, like you can plant seeds, but you can't really, you know, it's not really a role of someone like, you know, if I'm wearing my hair tissue mineral analysis hat, I'm not going to try and, you know, coach somebody on their, you know, mental, emotional health. But I think it's good to have resources like LifeLine, like biofield tuning, to steer them towards, because I think you can't just achieve the health with the minerals or just, you know, the diet or whatever it is.
I agree so much, and I think that you know, like the phrase "different strokes for different folks" as well comes into play, where some people may be more acclimated to certain therapies than other therapies, and no one is really better than another. It's just it depends on the individual. I try and work with, like, I call it integrated neural balancing, where I like to integrate with other people. And the reason why I do this is because, well, I'm fascinated and I've done education in emotional work. My specialization is in minerals, like flat out, right? And not to say that I don't have an idea or two about correcting any emotional disturbances or conflicts or, you know, anything like that. It's just not where I I'd like to wear my mineral hat, right? And I like to use the integrative kind of approach where you literally integrate with other people and other work. So one of the kind of basic foundations that have allowed me to do this and use like both biofield tuning and also like emotional stuff like LifeLine is by using the Ayurvedic model of the 5 bodies. And that's where you have like the physical body and physical body approaches, where you can do nutrition, you can make sure you exercise, you do the rebounder and all that fun stuff. And then there's the second area, which is like the vital body, which is like the auric field or the etheric body, whatever you want to call it. And that's kind of the area, as far as I know, where biofield tuning kind of fits in. It does impact the physical body, but all of these do. It works kind of downward as like the physical body is like, it's called gross in physics. It's the most solid, but as you step up to the vital body or you go up again to the mental body, they can control the one below it. So your mind can impact your vital fields, right? So that's why it impacts your chakras and your, you know, the 5 elements or 12 meridians. And the mind basically can control your physical level, which is like your mineral levels and things like that. They have 5, which is the next one after mind. They call it the archetypal, which is the idea of law, which I like to also correlate with, you know, things like the meridians and things like that. They're basically archetypes. So what is truth? right? There's no right definition. It's kind of very elusive. Beauty or, justice, they're all meaningful, but depending on situations, they can be good or bad. They're not any one particular thing. And then the last body is the spiritual body, the communal body, or the bliss body. And the reason why I use the 5 body model is because it allows me to use things like, oh, we can do nutritional balancing, biofield tuning, and LifeLine together, right? And I feel like it's a more complete approach overall because
Yeah,
it kind of
you're
covers
supporting.
everything.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. I that was kind of the realization that I'd come to, and I agree with you as well as far as integrating with other people, because one, you don't want to be, a jack of all trades and a master of none, right? You want to be good at what you do.
Right.
And
Yeah.
right. And so I think, yeah, they all support the body, the spirit, your experience, right, here on earth in a different way. But they all raise that vibration. They all improve your experience. And so, yeah, I mean, it can be any combination. And as you said, I think everybody has something that resonates with them and that has something that works really well for them. And but find that thing, find that way to really support your experience in a different aspect, rather than just doing NB, rather than just doing the diet, rather than just doing the coffee enemas. That is all extremely physical. And I know there's the pulling down exercise in there, but really, for me, like, I kept waiting. I was like, when am I going to process this anger? Like, because Dr. Wilson talks about, oh, well, as you do it, it's just going to naturally come up. It never came up for me. It never was something that I could work through. It was just always there. And so, but when I started actively using tools that really dealt with that was when I really started seeing the shifts happening in my life, in my personal life, but like in my own inner experience, but also in the relationships around me. Like, if I can give you guys another example, I was really struggling with my ex. We were having really bad communication issues. And so ethically, I can't do a session on him, although it works that way, that if he had given me permission, I could have done one remotely. But I couldn't do a session on him, but I could do a session on our relationship and the things that I was struggling with. And part of that session, the way that I connected to the emotions were the emotions that he was experiencing. And without really, I know you guys don't fully understand what I'm talking about, but at the end, he didn't talk to me for over a week. Like, I was trying to figure out what was going on with my kids, and we were going to do this and blah, 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 blah. And he was just flat out ignoring me. And I'm like, okay, I can't, like, what's going on here? So I ran this session, and that night he opened up, and I got a full email, and then he started texting me again, because he wouldn't text me. It was always through email. And then he called me, and then we talked. And so since I've run that session, our relationship has changed. So, like, there's so many different dynamics to this, that it's more than just your inner experience. It's your your relationships. It's your experiences that come to you that you, I mean, Mike, I couldn't even tell you the things that have changed in my life since this happened, that for the better. Like, I don't even recognize my life anymore. But it's all things that have come to me. It's nothing that I went out searching for. It's like, as I raised my vibration, as I changed that frequency of things that I was attracting, the things that I was attracting changed. And so it's amazing. It's like super, super amazing. Super amazing. I can't, I don't know. I wish it was more talked about. I wish it was more out there, especially with people that are really struggling with their health, because it's a key component, is working through those emotions and changing that energy field.
I flat out agree. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to have a call with you. I think at one point we've seen in the group, a lady had talked about how she did some emotional work. It escapes me exactly which one she did. And not long after, I think her next hair test, she had a copper dump, which she was waiting for about 4 years trying to initiate. And I mean, you can question causation, of course, but I believe that there's more than just coincidence around ever.
Yes.
So I kind of think, and my wife as well, Erin, was saying, like, that's what I've been saying. I think as soon as you start to bring some of these things into your awareness, it allows you to express them rather than repress them,
Yeah.
and eliminate them rather than hold on to them.
And so I have a theory, and it is like absolutely not founded in anything other than my own imagination. But I have this belief, and take it at that. Please, nobody quote me on this or anything. But this is just me like releasing stuff from my brain right now. That we bring in these imbalances. We bring in copper, for example. We bring in these different metals to support us. How can I best explain this? For example, if we feel like we need to be more angry to get our point across to be heard, then we will bring in and hold on to more metals that bring out that anger. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like we actually create these imbalances to better serve us in the environment that we're in. Now, they're not healthy for us by any means, but I feel like that is what we do. We create these imbalances to support these traumas that we've experienced to make sure that we don't go through these traumas again. So if we like, for example, people that have been abused, right? They all of a sudden have they're overweight and they struggle with losing weight, and it's that barrier that can protect them. Or if they've been beat up, they end up being really large people to protect them from that. These are, I mean, this is not across the board, this is what happens, but I'm just saying, these are different examples of how our physical bodies change to better protect us. It's not for the healthier, the better, but it protects us from experiencing these traumas that we've had in our past. And so it's purely for protection, even though it gets to a point where it truly limits us. I feel like it's a protective thing that we do to ourselves.
I kind of talked about this in a couple of our other past calls. In particular, one was on, I think the last recorded call. We had a couple of calls that we had technical issues, but one of them was on, first off, just the emotional kind of things that come about with physical organ imbalances.
Mm-hmm.
But which would probably touch on a lot of things we've talked about in this call. It's a good segue. But the other one was that I talked about blood sugar imbalances and how a lot of diabetics, or those with very high hypoglycemia, or sorry, hyperglycemia, they have high blood sugar itself, but they struggle with the physical inability of utilizing that sugar. And if you consider that, like, we're cells, and then cells make up tissues, tissues make up organs, organs make up organ systems, then at a very minute level, the fundamental level, like, you are a cell, right? At least you're experiencing, and it's something that the cell is experiencing. And I kind of touched on the idea that a lot of diabetics or people with very high blood sugar lack a certain sweetness in their life, and they may have like a very bitter environment, but they could be very bitter to themselves, and they deprive themselves of a lot of the sweetness of life. And that was just an idea. It's not necessarily like set in stone, this is what happens, but I've seen it in a couple of different people, like this scenario. So I think there's something to it, where we kind of create a lot of these biochemical issues to help us find homeostasis in our day-to-day life, but we don't necessarily, like, we still suffer from them, right? Like, we don't do it so that our life is easy. We unconsciously do some of these things.
And that's exactly it. It's that subconscious is acting from protection. It never for anything other than protection. So our reactive states, our anger, whatever it is that we struggle with emotionally, is always for protection. It's always for protection. It's never to screw us over or make our lives more difficult or anything like that. But it gets to a point, and this is what I was talking about with the wake-up call, is it gets to a point where it's no longer helping us anymore. It's no longer serving us. It's now limiting us. And so that's when we become really aware of it. That's when we start bumping up against these limits. That's when we start recognizing, like, for me, for example, again, I'm using myself, but I was angry my whole life, but I never recognized it until a certain point. And then it was like, oh my God, this is holding me back. This is destroying all my relationships. I mean, it was always there. It was always there, but it got to a point where it was like, this is no longer serving me. And so it became my wake up call, like, okay, this is something I need to work on. This is something I need to work through. And so that's, I mean, it literally does not show up at all in my life anymore. It doesn't show up. I mean, I shouldn't say that, not ever, but nothing, like once every couple of months I get angry. I mean, with my kids, with whatever situation is going on, it just doesn't show up anymore. But it was like a daily, multiple times a day, that it was a massive problem in my life. And so, yeah, anyway, it's really, the whole thing is.
Some of these negative things like anger or frustration, the inability to let go and all these kind of things, they serve a purpose at the end of the day, right? Like you should feel angry. Like something should make you angry. You can't just be like, oh, everything's flowers and it's all positive and high vibe, and which I do think plays a role, but there's a certain line of like ignorance that comes in play in that kind of mentality where you should feel upset about some things, right? You should feel depressed or even angry, and it moves you towards a better place rather than staying where you're at. But a lot of people, we see it with a calcium shell, for example, and they feel numb to a lot of their emotions, and they don't really see reality for what it is.
And that's such an interesting point that you bring that up, because that is one of the things that, especially people that are struggling with their health, I feel like numbness is or repression or not feeling things is one of the things, is kind of one of those consistent patterns through that. And so part of the healing process is starting to feel those emotions. And so they don't necessarily feel good, but you need to feel them to process them. You cannot process anything without feeling it first. As far as I know, I shouldn't make absolutes, because who knows, somebody's gonna come up with something like
all generalizations are false.
As far as I know right now, you need to feel those emotions. You don't need to sit in them. You don't need to stew in them. You don't need to bathe in them for days on end, but you need to process them. And so there's a really, I don't know if I can really show you guys right now, but there are very simple tools for processing really, really tough emotions and getting to a point where, and it doesn't feel good while you're going through it, but man, on the other side, you're just like, and it doesn't have to be a full LifeLine session. There's tools that you can use. Tapping is another one, like EFT is another great one for like how to process. It's very easy to learn. And yeah. So
when you were first beginning talking about LifeLine, when you were checking in on the states on how you feel in certain situations in your life or how you feel, that's what I first come to mind is the EFT. They do that. They go, okay, well, maybe I have back pain. What, out of 10, what would I rank it? And you say like 9 or 10 or something, and then you do EFT, and then you check back in. You see, am I still at this? Is it going down? Can I move it down, or is it just going down? And if I keep going, we'll see. Can we get it to 0, or at least as low as we can?
Yeah. No, and the same thing with LifeLine. At the end of it, you check back in and you reconnect to those symptoms. And that's another thing that people struggle with. It's like this is the other thing, is like one session I shouldn't say you will. Some people, I would say 99% of people feel better after a session. There are some people that take a few more days to start processing things. But
can I ask, are you guys
after a session? Sorry?
Can I ask if the way I see it, there's 2 ways to go about any emotional kind of, I don't know the right word, an emotional issue, I guess, for lack of a better word. Yeah, okay, that's a nice one. But the way I see it is there's the quantum leap kind of perspective where you can have a sudden perceptual change, right? I'm no longer going to kill the bad guys. I'm going to shift the environment so that the bad guys leave or something. Yeah. Or you can do the nitty-gritty conditioning kind of work, very Pavlovian, and you can slowly and repetitively change. Is there both involved in LifeLine, or like, can you touch
Yeah,
on that?
there is. Like I have some clients that they've had beliefs their entire lives, and they can have one session, and that belief is no longer there. No longer there. That I would say that is not super common with people that are struggling with health, because we are so conditioned and so shut off from communicating with ourselves that it takes a while to really get through that layer. I don't know how about, I mean, you're familiar with Joe Dispenza's work. So it's that same idea. Like he talks about people that are very suggestible, and then he talks about people like that have a very thin barrier between the conscious and subconscious mind, and then other people that have like a giant wall between the conscious and subconscious. And so I think that is where that people's experiences change. So some people can have that profound experience, but I'm going to say that those people that have that profound experience have put in their time ahead of time. That may have been the one thing that, like, you know, the opposite of the straw that broke the camel's back, you know, the straw that fixed the camel's back. But there has been work that has gone on ahead of that, or that they've had an experience that has literally shifted their perspective, like a profound experience that has shifted their perspective, like instantly. But it's not that common. Usually, I think even the people that have spontaneous remission have done some work ahead of time. Like it's just that is their moment when it's like everything lined up and boom, that whatever is going on is no longer going on. Or they connect with an energy that has come in and helped.
I have to go do something for my cat. So you guys keep going. I love it.
I gotta hop off. I got an appointment in 15 minutes, but it's been really nice to connect with everybody.
Absolutely. Nice to meet you, Sophia.
Thanks for sharing everything today.
My pleasure.
There, Sarah.
So, sorry, I don't know what I was saying, but I remember what I was going to say to you earlier, which was that when you were talking about the visualization, and I know you're probably not even there anymore, John, but when you were talking about the visualization of what it was that you wanted to do again, and going and picking flowers and being able to walk and be able to enjoy all the things that you used to enjoy that you could no longer enjoy. The mind can't tell the difference between a memory, which is, thinking about the past, or the present moment, what you're experiencing right now, or the future, which is your imagination. And so to be in that imagination, to be experiencing, like you're walking through a field and you're picking these flowers and you're able to fully enjoy that life, and you're walking without a cane and all of those things, your mind can't tell the difference. And it will start to realign your body as if that is what you're actually experiencing. So this is where, I mean, I'm sure everybody is familiar with guided visualizations and this type of thing, but that is where it becomes who you are. To go, I guess, even to more detail on that and to get a little more scientific is our brains in our amygdala, we create neuropeptides. So when we experience something, and I explain this to a lot of my clients in our first session, is when for example, if you are out in a field and there's a tiger that's there and it starts chasing you, you use all of your senses to analyze that situation. And so you see the tiger with your eyes, you hear the tiger running, you can smell it, maybe you can, right? And so all of these cues are going into this part of your brain, and you're analyzing it, and you're like, okay, what do I need to do? And so your freeze, fight or flight system comes into play, and it decides what you're going to do. And so what happens is you have your amygdala, you have these little neuropeptides, and neuropeptides are little molecules of emotions that go to all parts of your body. Every single cell in your body receives these neuropeptides, and it tells these cells what's going on inside. So this is how your liver knows what's going on in your environment. This is how your digestive system knows what's going on in your environment, whether it's a good time for you to be digesting your food or whether all of that blood should be going to your arms and your legs so that you can run. And so these neuropeptides go to each and every cell in your body. So if you're living in a state, if you are in a constant state of stress, then these molecules of stress or fear or worry or anxiety or any of these emotions are now going to each and every cell in your body. And each and every cell is receiving these molecules of emotion, these neuropeptides, and they're adapting. They're adapting how they function based on that what they've received. And so this is how we physically manifest these diseases. This is how we physically manifest these emotions that we're experiencing. It is this process of our each and every cell in our body adapting to what the emotions, to our environment, so that we can survive. So it's a good thing if each and every cell in our body knows that we're being chased by a lion. All of the blood can go to our arms and legs. We can run. We can get out of there. We can climb a tree, whatever it is, to survive. But if we're constantly being chased by lions, all of that energy is going to our arms and legs. We're not digesting. We're not going through. Our immune system isn't functioning. All of that energy is going to this freeze, fight, or flight system, and all of these other things are starting to break down. And so this is how we become our illnesses. This is how we become our emotions. And so again, this is where being able to process that stuff, being able to recognize when you don't feel in alignment anymore, when you're like, I'm totally worried about something and it's been bothering me for a couple of days. Like that's one of those times you got to sit down and be like, okay, I've got to sort through this. For me, I didn't have the tools to do that. I had no idea. I was like, I tried the presence process. I tried the power of now. I read books upon books upon books. And it wasn't until I had a system that worked for me. But again, there are so many out there. So if you can find one that resonates with you, that you can learn. I mean, again, EFT is very easy to learn, and I think you can learn it generally for free. I think there's the tapping solution.
There's YouTube, and there's also some books on it.
Yeah, I mean,
you don't need a whole book. It's like literally like a piece of. I'll upload it on just to in the group. You just tap in certain locations and you say an affirmation with it, and you just check in.
And for me, the key for that functioning really well is to be really have that searching, seeking curiosity of what am I feeling right now? Because when you can really tap on how you're feeling, that's when you really start to get the shifts. It's like, I'm feeling like I can't do this, like I'm not good enough, like nobody likes me, like I'm never going to be able to do this. I can't talk out loud. I can't speak in front of people. I can't put a presentation together. I can't, blah, blah, whatever it is. I mean, now I'm totally speaking not from a health perspective, but like, my body's never going to heal. I'm never going to be able to, I don't know, not do a coffee enema in the morning. I'm never going to have a normal life again. I'm never going to, I'm worried. I'm fearful. What if I get sick? What if I get worse? What if this doesn't work? What if I'm doing all of this and I'm just going to feel worse and worse and worse and worse and nothing's going to get better? But you can go through that and you can start to process all of those thoughts, because all of those thoughts are related to trauma that you've experienced. And when you can get to a point, you will always get to a point where it shifts and you start to have hope and you start to see the light and you start to feel better and you start to feel encouraged and wow, no, this is going to work. And if it's not going to work, it's fine, because I'm going to be, and you find it's like the moment of darkness is the beginning of light, right? The moment of complete darkness is the beginning of light. So as you get further and further down and you get deeper and deeper and deeper into these things, these thoughts that constantly run through our minds, when you get to the bottom and you give them all a voice and you let them be heard, they disappear. They don't need to say it anymore. But it's when we shove them down and we're like, oh, and we don't let them move through us, that's when it gets really sticky. So again, EFT is a really great one and it's super easy. But really to connect to what's going on inside of you and really with curiosity, even though it feels horrible to really go there and really let that energy come out, because it's stuck inside you right now. So, yeah. Is there anyone there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Sometimes I wonder if my internet cuts out. Like, 10 minutes. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I really agree with you. I like the whole idea between LifeLine and all that. It really, to me, it fits with a lot of the stuff that I work with. Like, um, well, I don't know if you've ever come across like the book Quantum Doctor or anything like that, where, or even Deepak Chopra wrote Quantum Medicine back up.
Is that the one that just came out like in the last 6 months or a year?
I don't know about his new books. I
Yeah.
can't pay attention to him that often, but he
Yeah.
basically put forth the idea that belief was really important, and basically that like even the power of placebo is kind of like your mind also working on things. And
it's amazing that they don't put more energy. It's like, I feel like placebo just gets brushed aside like it's nothing. It's like, oh, well, you know, it works as well as a placebo. And you're like, wait, are you guys focusing on the fact that a placebo can cure you? Like, I mean, we have the power to make this medicine within us. We have the power to cure our bodies within us. It's all within us. We can get but it's all within us. We have this power.
it's interesting because they even like they compare a drug to a placebo, and then they go, oh, placebo is nothing. But then when you compare like a placebo with another placebo, and you do a double placebo experiment, some has better results than others. So you can compare it with itself even. It's really a weird area. And then there's the nocebo kind of, it's nothing but it may negatively affect you, which we see a lot, especially with autoimmune issues. And to me, that's like a heart chakra kind of thing where you identify what's me and what's not me. And it's like there's like a constant battle between me and not me, like where my body ends and where another body begins. And if you follow a lot of spiritual paths, it's like there's no dividing line. Right? Like, I am nature and nature is me. And it's the same all the way through. But some people go, oh, I can't tolerate any sugar. Right? To me, it's like they may be accurate in that, but it's also an interesting area where like you can't tolerate something your body will make itself is a little hard to grasp.
Yeah. Right? But it's these things that we tell ourselves. We have these beliefs that things are a certain way, or that things have to be a certain way, and that is what happens. That is what it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so, not to say that people don't deal with sugar. I mean, it's not to say that at all, but you can change that. You can shift that belief. It's really a matter of changing what you're telling yourself, and then trusting in that. I mean, that's another big thing is the trust in, like, I mean, just trust in general. I feel like we second guess, and doubt, and to just kind of give that energy over to a higher power and be like, you know what, I trust in where I am today, and I trust in how I'm moving forward, and I don't know, that's a whole other conversation, but yeah.
Do you have any thoughts, Sarah? I don't. Maybe you're just comfortable listening. I'm just scared.
Oh, sorry. Well, no, I'm comfortable listening. I missed, I think, the first few minutes where you probably talked about what LifeLine actually is. So I'm kind of listening to this whole entire thing a little bit confused.
I mean, just a really quick. It's just a way for processing.
No, I understand that. I just don't understand what it is.
What it is. So yeah, no. Without going into full details again, I did explain it, and so it's It's a system. I mean, gosh, it's one of those things that you really have to experience to fully understand it. But it uses different modalities. You set an intention.
Mm-hmm.
First you connect to symptoms and stresses. You set an intention, and then
Okay.
we go through a series of steps of
Okay.
connecting to the different emotions, the different things that are getting in the way of you having that intention, that are not in alignment with your intention. And so it uses
Okay.
and we find emotions and we do NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming. We do work with the chakras. We do work with we also use sound. We use crystals. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different aspects to it. There's Ayurveda in it. It's very the developer spent a lot of time traveling and so incorporated all of these things into Lifeline.
Okay. And how do you set your intention? How do you know what your intention is, I guess you could say? I mean, do you come to Lifeline with a purpose in mind, or do you work together to get an intention?
So you can't, it depends on the person. Some people are like, this is what I want to work on today. Other people connect to something that's going on in their life at the time. And so the way that you set an intention is you connect to your heart and you say, in the face of these symptoms that I'm experiencing right now, in the face of this stress that's going on in my life right now, and the way that I'm reacting to it, this is how I choose. This is what I choose for me. And so it can be whatever comes up from that. Some people it's love, some people it's peace. I mean, as you get more into it, it's usually a lot more in depth than that. But it's what comes through, and it literally comes from your heart. Like you can literally, if you're in your head, it's a different intention. If you really put that energy on your heart, it's what comes through, and it's your heart is always going to lead you where your next best move. It may not know 10 moves from now where you need to go, but it's always going to lead you to your next best move. And so you follow it. And then the other thing with the intention is that you're going to set it with a focus on where you're going, because what we resist persists. What we focus on grows. And so if we're focused on getting away from disease, or we're focused on getting away from this person, or we're focused on getting away from that stress or whatever, that's what grows. Is you're putting that attention on the stress or the disease or the symptom or whatever. So it's really, you're looking towards your future, and you're facing forward and setting your intention with that in mind of I'm moving forward. And so
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
And then we activate it. So we set the intention, you set it as if you're already there. So you can say I am. So if it's peace that comes through, I am peace. And then you go into, and I take people through a visualization of what that looks like for them. And so they get to experience what it would look like to live in the world of I am peace. And then from that, there's a feeling that comes through. It can be expansive. It can be amazing. It can be relaxed. It can be whatever. But as they experience that, as they visualize that intention, they're able to have that feeling come into the body of what it looks like, what it feels like to be in living that life. And the reason that we can do that, the reason that we can feel it, is because we have this capability already in our body. Whatever intention you set, you have the ability to create it. And so we can create the feelings that go with it. And that's, again, those neuropeptides that are, so as you say peace gets flowing through your body. Every neuropeptide goes through every cell in your body. And then we become peace, and we can feel it. And sometimes we feel it in our chest, sometimes we feel it in our stomach, sometimes we feel it in our head, sometimes we feel it in our whole body. But that is those neuropeptides. That is our body adapting to that emotion, that feeling that intention that we set. So it's a really cool process.
Interesting. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Sarah, can I just ask that you mute your microphone when you are going to speak? Only because.
Yes, are you getting? Yeah. Sorry about that. I had it muted almost the whole time until you. and
Well,
then I forgot to go back and put it back
that's
on mute.
fine. Yeah, we're gonna move over to Zoom one day where I can just do it for you, but
Yes,
until we
no.
get there.
Right, makes sense.
Yeah. One of the things that comes to mind really is the idea of learned helplessness. A lot of people feel that like doesn't matter what they're gonna do, they're still gonna get hurt by what they're gonna do. So I've seen that some people are afraid to approach some of these emotional techniques because they don't want to bring up past traumas with the fear of that they're going to be negatively affected by them more than if they just shoved them into their calcium deposits.
Yeah.
That's just an idea, but
No, it's funny because I have family members. I mean, I would say all of my family members are like that, except for my kids. But I had a family member that was going through something quite substantial and had been through a lot of trauma in their life, a lot of trauma, and was struggling with inner ear, like vertigo, as well as, I'm trying to think what else was going on. There was something else and I can't think of what it was. Oh, hearing loss that was going with it. And had gone to the doctor, done this, done that. Nothing was working. And we happened to be on vacation together. And I was like, listen. And I just did EFT with him. And it was literally like there's a summit every year for EFT, which is really, I don't know when it is. I don't know if it's already passed this year, but anyway, I had just come across it and I was like, this is super fascinating. It's super easy and it's easy to teach somebody. And so I'm like, just do like a couple of rounds with me. Like let's just do some EFT. And so he was super resistant. I'm like, why don't you do a LifeLine session with me? Why don't you do this? Why don't you, I'll totally support you through this. And it was like, no, don't want to touch that. And so we did this EFT and he started crying. And like, I had never before seen him cry. Started crying, but not at all embarrassed about it at all. Because that's the other thing is when you're in it, you're in it. And so the emotion just flows. And so I started crying. And within probably 5 minutes of doing EFT, he's like, I just felt this whoosh from my ear and I could hear again. And the vertigo was gone. And it was like literally from processing like 5 minutes worth. Now it came back because he didn't keep up with it. But it's literally that powerful. If you can truly start to work through those emotions, it feels so scary until you do it and you're like, oh my God, why did I resist this for so long? Because you feel better. Like it's not scary to go through it. What's scary is to hold on to it because it's always there. It's always there. You can push it down as much as you want, but it's still there. It's still affecting you. And you think that you're not dealing with it, but it's still affecting you. And so then to just release it and let it go, oh my gosh, it's amazing. It is incredible. So yeah, I understand that people are afraid of it, but it's one of those things that you gotta jump in. And I mean, this is where I'm at now is like, when I'm afraid of something, I know that is what's holding me back. And that's exactly where I need to go. Luckily, I have tools that can help me sort through the fear that I'm experiencing as I'm stepping right into it. But that's what's holding you back is you are letting that control your life. And you're not going to move forward unless you can step into these fears and say, okay, what's there? Because I guarantee you it's much worse in your imagination than what it is in real, like what you actually will go through as you confront it.
Have you come across the book The Complete Dictionary of Ailments and Diseases by Jacques Martel?
I have not.
He's a really, really cool Canadian. And us Canadians, we're wacky sometimes.
Are you Canadian?
Yeah.
I'm Canadian too.
Yeah, I was in Ontario. So.
Me too.
So he's got a book. He's from Quebec. And he talks about, his book is basically about like, he talks about the body as if it's the temple of flesh, like how all diseases have an emotional component and that they're basically the body speaking to you in its own language. And he talks, for example, like So basically we have many parts of our body, right? But he uses like a way of kind of describing how a disease would come about, or even some ideas that are often related with them. So for example, like he talks about how like burnout is related to like an escape from an intense emotion experienced at work or in various occupations. And he talks about like individual organs as well, such as like my skin is the interface between my inner and my outer sides.
Yeah.
So, and then when you have like a skin issue, you can have like inflammation there. That's my cat.
I've got Steve. And a dog. Did I lose you?
No, yeah, that's my cat.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
John? We lost you.
Yeah, what was the question?
What was the book called?
It's the Complete Dictionary of Ailments and Diseases by Jacques Martel. It's a big blue book. You can get it on Amazon, or I bought it while in Canada, but in Australia you cannot get it. So there's some countries that just don't do anything about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's not like Joe Dispenza. It's just some French guy that can translate his book. But I find it very helpful in a lot of situations. So, you know, like the liver, he talks about how, like he talks often about how the organ functions in the body first, right?
Yeah.
And it would be like, you know, the liver cleans my blood and things like that. It secretes bile. And then he attaches it like it has a lot to do with how we criticize each other and judge others, and we has a lot to do with like deprivation, because when you don't have proper liver molecules, you get diseases that, you know, deprive you of sugars and things like that. So you know he kind of attaches them, and I found it was very helpful. I bought the book mostly because like he talks about all the different stuff. It's kind of like a dictionary for diseases, right? But I find it helpful in any situation. Like if I just got like something going on with my ear, I just open it up and I look at the ear. It'll tell me a bit of information about, you know, that one area.
Yeah.
And you can piece it together. Like it's not perfect, and it's not like it's written in stone, but maybe I'll just read like the ear in general. It's very short.
Yeah.
So you get an idea of what it's like. So this is called the ear, and then in general, right? In brackets. So sight and hearing allow me to locate myself in the environment. I can see things without there being any sound, and I can hear things without necessarily seeing where those sounds are coming from. Taken jointly together, these two senses provide a sort of three-dimensional take on my environment. Thus, the ears enable me to hear all the sounds that surround me, whether harmonious or disharmonious, and warn me of danger. Total or partial deafness may occur when I cannot deal with or accept from my head to my heart what I hear.
Yeah.
I thereby cut off contact between me and others. If I am deaf, it is because of a selective information process that has set in. For I want to hear only what suits me, and I cut myself off from anything that doesn't suit me in the midst of everything that is being said. This selective process is very effective, for it enables me to recognize, for example, the voice of my child who I am searching for in a crowd. Similarly, this process acts in reverse for whatever I don't want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Indirectly, the ears make it possible to maintain a body-spirit balance by making its way about in the universe. This balance holds me standing erect and on alert and allows me to be centered and to follow my way. The ear is also a symbol of my inner listening. The fact of listening to my inner wisdom manifests itself through my ears. The state of my ears shows how open I am to my deepest emotions and how flexible and accepting I am from my head to my heart towards them. And then it says like an affirmation kind of thing to help with this ear ailment. And the affirmation would be, I accept from my head to my heart to remain flexible with respect to my life structures that are constantly evolving. By building solid bases with the help of my inner voice, my ears remain in perfect health. So that's just like an example of like just the ears, but it goes through like, childhood diseases and cancer, your bones, all
Yeah.
that stuff.
No, that's super fascinating. And it's funny that you say that because as I was talking about my family member, that was exactly it. He was so cut off from his emotions, so cut off. And so, yeah, I mean, and that explains it too, why doing the EFT with him and just processing that and getting that moving was able to help his hearing. So it was super fascinating. And I don't know if it was Joe Dispenza. I know that I listened to an audiobook and they talked about that, where there were some women, I'm going to say Vietnam, but I could be wrong, that had experienced, they witnessed, I think, their entire families being slaughtered or something, like horrific, or their entire village, or it was just awful. And they ended up in the United States and they all went blind because they couldn't deal with what they had seen. Right? It's so powerful. It's so powerful, are these traumas that we experience. And the crazy thing is that they don't even have to be something massive like that. They don't have to be abuse. They don't have to be, it can just be like feeling like our parents like our brother more than they like us. Or, it doesn't have to be, and it doesn't even have to be true. That's the other thing, is it doesn't even have to be true. It's just how we perceive it. And then from that, we build these protective walls around us to protect us from feeling hurt, from feeling like we're not good enough, from feeling all these different emotions. And it's really like, yeah, it gets to the point where it doesn't serve us anymore, and they just need to be tossed out, processed.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Ray, where it's made after Ray Charles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he's the same kind of situation where he had witnessed his brother die.
Yeah.
And then I think, like, at least in the movie, it was like very shortly after he would become blind. And again, causation is always a question, but I do think that there's definitely a correlation there with how things affect us in our life and the meaning that we give to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very individual meaning, right? That's what we have a mind for, to call it the meaning giver, right? Because otherwise everything is just signals and it's feelings. Feelings don't have emotions, but you can feel emotions.
Yeah.
Right? Emotions have meaning, which is very important to the human.
Yeah.
So I kind of think that's a very cool area that really gets overlooked. Like with the hair test, we see like the thyroid and the adrenal gland, but nobody ever talks about the emotional stuff that come with the thyroid, like communication and that kind of stuff. Sorry?
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. That's exactly the thyroid. Yeah, I mean, that's your voice, that's your authenticity, that's your communication with the external world,
self-expression, and all that stuff.
Exactly. And yeah, I mean, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. I mean, it fascinates the bejesus out of me. I love it, and I mean that's why I do it. But it's so vast. It's so vast, and to even, I mean, and there's science coming out now that is supporting this, but it's so enormous that. But it's really cool. I definitely gonna check out that book. And Louise Hay has that too in You Can Heal Your Life. Not to that extent by any means, but like talks about different organs, different body functions that are affected by disease and what the meaning is behind them. And
I have that book as well. And when I first got this one by Jacques Martel, I thought, hey, that's Louise Hay's work. And then when I was reading through it, it started with Louise Hay's. And he went more in depth with all of the different stuff. And this book is like 400 pages, 500 pages.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's very elaborate. And it doesn't have everything. Like Lyme disease isn't in there. But, you know, but it's very, if you're on this path, I think you will get a lot out of it. That's my sage.
No, and it's interesting because I'm doing a course in hypnotherapy too, which is really interesting. And it's just the mind, I mean, it believes whatever we tell it. And so it's just, I don't know. I mean, we can literally transform these things just from changing the way that we talk to ourselves. And it's not easy. I mean, it's not easy. I remember doing the presence process and being like, okay, and when you get angry, just hold, just be with it and don't take it out on anybody. And that worked for like 6 hours. And then I was like, and so it's not that simple. But man, when you can find something that works for you as a way to make those shifts, oh man, it's incredible. It's incredible. I love it.
Well, thank you. I think we'll just call it a day unless you want to keep talking, but I think we covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, no, it's, I thank you so much for inviting me on, and it's always a pleasure for me to talk about this and to really inform people, not even inform, but just to, I think it was Sophia said it, like planting a seed. Not everybody's ready for it right now. I know I wasn't ready for it when I first came to MB, but planting that seed that there's more and it's not scary. It's really not. It's so empowering. And you get to a point where it then becomes, it's not about your health anymore. It's like, how can I live my life to the fullest? It becomes so much bigger than that. And it's incredible. It's incredible because each time you take that step, each time you do that work, it just is more and more and more, I don't know, expansive. Like the way that, I'm sorry, I'm going to just to say this, we'll let you go. But I see it as like baby gates. So like when we have these little toddlers running around, right? And we're afraid they're going to whack their head on the fireplace and they're going to, and so we put up these gates and we protect them. And it serves them up until a point where it no longer serves them and they start bumping up against these gates. And so you move them a little bit bigger. And so like each time that you process those emotions, you're moving those baby gates bigger. You're never going to get out of the baby gates. Your subconscious mind is always going to be protected. But
it's as within, so without, right? So there's an aspect of our biology that does exactly what you're just saying.
Yeah, no, it's pure protection. It's pure, everything that you're experiencing, all of these like emotions and all of these symptoms and all, it's all just related to your subconscious trying to protect you so you can survive. It's all related to some sort of trauma that's happened in your past that your subconscious thought, okay, we can't go through this again because we didn't know how to process this when it happened last time. So we're going to protect you so that you don't need to, so that you don't step into that area again. But when you process that emotion, you're showing the subconscious, no, I'm good. I know how to deal with this now. And so those baby gates disappear. You don't need them anymore because you're like, no, look, I got it. I got the tools. I got it. We've got this sorted out. And then boom, down. Now there's more baby gates. There's always more baby gates, but they're bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And your world just gets enormous, and your ability to create the life that you want, the life that is in alignment with you, and to keep yourself in alignment and to feel good. Like, I mean, I felt like shit like absolute shit for many, many, many years. And now I can feel, I'm like, I'm not in alignment, but I have been in alignment for the last 8 days. And I know now that I need to do some work. Whereas before, I mean, I was in a constant state of stress and panic and fear and all of that. So, I mean, you get to a point where it doesn't control your life anymore, and you can really start moving beyond this really, really tight area of baby gates where you're bumping up against people nonstop.
Yeah, I see what you're getting at. I have some clients that I work with that come from the field of emotional work.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's like all they did was emotional work.
Mm-hmm.
And then they came to work with me because they realized that they still need to do the physical work as well.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I just wanted to say, because a lot of the calls gone as if it's, you know, only from the one side. But there's the other side as well, where people are doing emotional work, but then they're like, hey, I really got to start eating better, or I really got to start, you know, working on my heavy metal load because for whatever reason, exposures, and the mind can only do so much. And, you know, you have to, if you're going to be willing yourself clean of heavy metals, you better have a strong will. And you're guessing still, because like you don't always know what's there and what's not. So, you know, it comes on both sides. But I also want to ask you quick before the call's done. Do you use an M-Wave, the heart math device, where I don't know about working virtually with people, but when you work one-on-one, I got a device myself, and it's a biofeedback device. So it gives feedback on your body's heart rate variability. So it tells you essentially whether or not your heart and your mind are incongruent or on the same page. And very often I've found that, like, especially very intelligent, like intellectual based people, they're very, like, they can think their way through it logically and stuff like that, but trying to bring that down into the body is a different thing. It's like they're very crown chakra oriented, right? And I think that's Wilson's effort of the pulling down exercise, where it brings them to the body. But bringing down some of these ideas that are more than just thoughts into the biology is a little different. And I was asking just about this device because I found it in my own healing journey. I used it to help, you know, kind of bring me into my body more, because I'm an intellectual kind of, like, I read all the time, you know, philosophize and all that stuff, but you know,
I haven't heard of it. I know it's heart math, right?
Yeah, they have a portable device, and then they also have one that plugs into the computer. The one that plugs into the computer is better for, like, working with clients and stuff like that. But I've used just myself with clients that are in person, just plugging them right in. It just clips on your ear. As they're telling me their story of their health journey or stuff like that, and you can see that their heart is not in coherence, which basically says, like, it's not pulsating at a calm pace. It's going all over the place, and it goes with their voice. So some parts of their story they'll be telling you they feel very strongly about. They're very calm and relaxed, and then they touch on another area, and then the M wave goes red or green. It's very simple. And it goes red, it means they're starting to get a little stressed out, or they're falling out of coherence. And you can see it like your mind and body being coherent, right? They're resonating together. And I just thought, maybe, you know, if you're not using it, maybe in the future you probably want to try using it. It's very effective, especially in the emotional world, because, like I was saying, you can have some people that intellectually think they've resolved the conflict, but then their heart's just not in it, right? So you anchor it down, and that's helpful with hypnotherapy and NLP, and you can anchor these new beliefs, these new thought patterns with a state of coherence, and where they feel relaxed rather than, you know, with crying or something.
No, that's fascinating. No, I'd seen when I went to the workshop with Joe Dispenza, I'd seen his graphs from that work, but I didn't know that it was the type of thing that you could just have at home. That's amazing.
It's quite economical. I think you can get like the N-Wave Pro for like $300 or something, and I think the just the travel one's about the same price. It's not as like as elaborate as the Pro one that plugs into the computer, but to be able to have it like on the bus or like when you're traveling or something, it's a real blessing. So it's really cool. He uses QEEG as far as I know nowadays, where he measures the brain.
Yeah.
The heart, it's got 9 times more neurons in it than the brain. So, like you can definitely work with the heart.
Yeah, no, and I know I remember specifically his graphs being like heart coherence and whether or not they were, and then like it just going off the chart with some of the meditations. So
that's it.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Totally. Thank you for that suggestion.
Check that out. It'll definitely help you, yourself and others. I guarantee it.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking for me, because I'm like you. I have in my head.
That's how it starts. I swear. You gotta learn it before you can teach others.
Yeah.
So, thanks a lot, Courtney, and thank you, Sarah, for coming. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Sophia. You're not here anymore, but the non-local consciousness knows.
Everybody's here.
Thank you.
Bye. Have a nice day, everyone.
Bye.